This is CBC Here and Now.
We've been listening to the news, and all we're hearing is about the farmers. We're not hearing nothing about the fishermen.
What they saw was really concerning.
What's going to happen to our future and our investments? Millions of dollars people got into it. And where do you go?
Tonight, a massive effort. Here and Now takes you to the southwest coast where crews are working to clean up hundreds of thousands of dead salmon. Good evening, I'm Carolyn Stokes, and that's our top story tonight. The Here and Now team is on the southwest coast capturing video of the massive cleanup effort. This after a major salmon die-off on the coast of Bay's Fortune Bay. The pens are owned by Northern Harvest Sea Farms. Now, nearly a month later, crews are still cleaning up dead fish. Anthony Germain is live from Harbour Breton tonight. So, Anthony, paint us a picture. What are you seeing down there?
Well, it was quite the day, Carol. Now, the company, because its priorities on the cleanup, is not giving reporters tours of the cleanup site. So we managed to find a vessel that took us to a site near Rencounter East. And on the way, we were listening to some of the traffic from the cleanup crew. And what struck me was a sentence in which one man said, "She's coming apart pretty good, liquefied. It looks like stew coming up." And when we got there, we could see these seiners and these chutes on the sides of the vessels just spewing this pink froth back into the ocean. And we're sort of looking at that going, well, this is remarkable. What is that stuff? The question we're still trying to answer. But what you can't see there is almost as interesting as what you can see. That seiner is parked right next to one of the fish cages. And inside those fish cages, alongside thousands of pounds of rotting salmon, are two divers. And those divers, probably one of the worst jobs in Newfoundland, albeit one that pays very well, with reason. They're moving that big red hose around, and every now and then it gives the order, and you'll throw the switch, and then you get more of that salmon emulsification basically gushing out into the ocean. And then on the surface of the water, what's also coming up with that byproduct is fat. You'll see globs of fat all over the area. We sailed around, you could see it here and there, patches of skin, bits of fish, and globs of fat, both on the surface and some of it sinking. So under the water, you could see that fat there as well. So that was on the surface. Now, depending on the current and the winds, that fat is being taken ashore. And so there's certain areas, little coves, tiny beaches, that look like they're covered in bacon fat. If you think about how hard it is to clean bacon fat off a cold frying pan, and you look at a large rocky cove with that fat on the grass, or on the sand rather, and even below the surface, it's quite the mess. And so the question a lot of people in the region, not just here in Harbour Breton, are wondering, okay, well, how many of these cleanup operations is it going to take? Are we talking a dozen, more than 70? Is it 100,000 fish? Is it 1 million fish? So still lots of questions. Well, one other person who also went around looking at these kinds of sites was the head of the FFAW, Keith Sullivan.
Well, we need more answers on that. Quite frankly, right now, Department of Fisheries and Oceans saying that they're not involved at this stage. We're not getting enough answers from that, but it's clear that it's having some impact outside of the cage sites. We just got to know exactly how much, and is there a reason for concern? Because right now the concern exists among harvesters who spent their life working and making their living in those areas. So we need some of those answers, and people who live here deserve that as well.
It's a very awkward place in small towns because some people know that aquaculture has brought a lot of prosperity to this region, but there are lobster fishermen and other people who make their livings from fish that don't live in cages, and they're very worried about this, especially the lobster fishermen. I met two of them, one from Belorem and one from Harbour Breton, and here's our conversation.
I'm a lobster fisherman from Belorem, and I fish in different areas when I'm loftering, and I was just wondering what impact is this going to have on the lobster fisher, if any. But just say if it's Rencounter, just takes Rencounter lobster fishery. I mean, if it don't affect us, but it could, because they're not going to go out every day in our lobster traps and not getting on it. They're going to move on different grounds, same as I would. You don't go. You got families to feed. You got bills to pay. So you got to go somewhere.
I'm also sort of taking a look at what's going on with this pink matter being put back into the ocean. This stuff has to end up somewhere, right, Gary? Is that something that weighs on your mind?
Well, it's probably, yes, because you got the tides, you got the winds, current taking it around, and while the fish is going through this, the young fish, like I fish herring, I fish lobster, and I fish scallop. So what do this settle down and pollute the bottom? We don't know, nobody's telling us nothing. And like you're out in the woods, you're lost. So what's going to happen? He's going to give us a bad future and a bad mind to wonder really what's going to happen to our future and our investments. Millions of dollars people got into it. And where do you go? What's going to happen?
Yeah, any questions for the company in all of this? Because obviously it looks like it's going to take a couple more weeks to get all of these pens cleaned up. What would you ask them?
The definite answer is, it's going to affect us. Should we start bailing out? You know, because it's time. People want to buy the license, but it's not going to be worth nothing. Could be 10 years down the road. I'm not old enough to retire yet. It could be finished.
Now, Philip, you've obviously been fishing for a very long time. When you sort of think about the future, you've seen some of the fat and the oil or reports of it and all that. What would you like to know about what's going on with this cleanup?
Well, same as Gary just said, we'd like to know what is there any impact on the laughter fishery? Maybe there's none. We don't know. We've been listening to the news, and all we're hearing is about the farms. We're not hearing nothing about fishermen. I mean, fishing could be involved, be impacted in this. We don't know. And like Gary just said, right now you're saying your laughter license now for probably $250,000 if this takes an impact on this guy. So I mean, like myself, I'm 58 years old. I'm not saying I'm going to retire when I get 65. I could be at this for a long, long time yet. But if I do, it probably won't be worth nothing.
Last question for you both. We're talking about a very large multinational corporation here. If it turns out that this fish kill affects your livelihood, should that company compensate you?
Sure it should. We laughter fished there for years. We never had no trouble. But I'm just saying that, but it probably is not. We don't know. That probably mightn't even have nothing to do with laughters or any other fishery. But I think we should know. We got right to know. We got money invested in that. My boat there now, and plus all my gear and everything, is about $500,000. I mean, what you going to do if you got to get out of it?
Right. Gary, I'll give you the last word.
I'm lost for words, but I tell you, it's hard to sleep nighttime now. Just know what I've seen the last couple of days, what is going to the seed, anything that's coming behind it. Do it live? Do this fat what's on the water? Do it dissolve? Like I say, there's questions out there we would really like to know. All the fishermen, I'm talking to guys home, they really want to know what's going on down here. I've told them, and I don't mean to make away with nobody's jobs, but I want to sleep good at night.
So Gary won't sleep well at night, and actually here in the region, a lot of people not sleeping so easy, not just the lobster fishermen, but people who also really care about the aquaculture industry here. We'll get another point of view about just what aquaculture has done for the region a bit later in our coverage.
Okay, so Anthony, all of this is coming at a time when our fisheries minister is doubling down on the industry.
Yeah, a fascinating political development with the federal Liberals saying for people in British Columbia and the West Coast that they want to help that province move to a land-based system in a very short period by 2025. Here, of course, you've got Gerry Byrne saying, okay, if you are closing things in BC, we are more than happy to invite those companies to come here.
So with science as our guide, using good regulatory practice, which we have in this province, which we just enhanced through my recent announcement of additional regulation, improved regulation, bringing us up to world-class standards, exceeding world-class standards. Yeah, Newfoundland and Labrador is a place where much of that salmon production should consider to locate.
Interesting, Gerry Byrne, of course, he was part of a Liberal federal government. Now you've got a federal government saying it wants to move aquaculture to land-based on the coast of British Columbia, here in Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. Can you have two different systems in the country? Who knows, but certainly a very interesting development, not just in aquaculture, but obviously in the federal election campaign. Carolyn?
Salmon pigment, it dissolves, it's not an environmental risk.
Tonight, the company is weighing in on the situation on the South Coast. Ahead, I'll put those concerns to Northern Harvest Sea Farms.
Another cool day across the province. Those temperatures again barely reaching the double digits for some areas. 10 degrees for Deer Lake. Only saw a high near 6 degrees for St. John's this afternoon, and we did see some snow for the first time on the Long Range Mountains. I'll show you some pictures of that coming up in a little bit. But if we take a look at the satellite radar, you can see we've switched to that northerly flow now. The low pressure system that was just to the south of us has moved away now, and we're back into that northerly flow. This is where we'll be sitting in the morning hours, so another cool night on tap tonight. The risk of some flurries again for some areas. I'll have all the details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, strong words today for the makers of opioid drugs that have taken a heavy toll on people in this province. Both the Justice and Health Ministers are speaking out about a proposed class action case to sue pharmaceutical companies for compensation. It's estimated that the toll these opioid drugs have taken is in the billions of dollars, and the crisis is far from over. The number of people in this province receiving opioid addiction treatment has increased from about 1,200 people 5 years ago to about 3,000 now. The proposed class action suit is taking aim at drug companies like maker of OxyContin and the Sackler family that owns Purdue Pharma. Fentanyl is the potentially deadly opioid in the news right now, but more than a decade ago, OxyContin was destroying lives.
When the supply of those drugs has dried up, it's led people to street drugs. And we've seen, because of that, people exposed now to the fentanyl and carfentanil and kind of poisoning issue.
What I will say is the facts of this case are heinous. I mean, just when you look at the addictive nature and the fact that, there was misleading information that was put out there to the healthcare system, to physicians, and ultimately to people, not telling the true story of the addictive qualities. And it's had a huge impact. People are dying.
Limbe Vert, the fire chief, is voicing concern that his firefighters won't be able to respond to highway accidents because the department's rescue truck is no longer safe to drive. The fire truck is more than 30 years old and no longer is able to respond to car crashes and other emergencies. The department is asking people to help it lobby the province for a replacement. In the meantime, its equipment has been put onto a pumper truck, but the fire chief says if calls come in about multiple emergencies, the firefighters may not be able to respond to highway accidents.
Can't take our last truck out of Baybert, which is a pumper, so that's quite understandable too. We can't leave the residents of Baybert with the big businesses and stuff that's around here unprotected.
Well, Steve Kent is a household name in this province, and now the politician turned bureaucrat has taken what appears to be an abrupt leave of absence from his influential job with the city of Mount Pearl. Kent announced on social media today that he's stepping away from work to deal with a personal matter. Here now's Terry Roberts reports.
This is Steve Kent 2 years ago.
In light of our family situation, in light of where we are politically.
Announcing his decision to leave politics and become the new $200,000 a year Chief Administrative Officer for the city of Mount Pearl, managing a budget of $54 million, more than 200 employees. But today, Kent wrote this on Twitter, announcing he was on leave from work to deal with a personal matter, that he loves his family and his community, but to take care of both, he needs to focus on his own health, saying, "I'll be back soon." The announcement was unexpected. Kent attended a council meeting on Tuesday, accepted an Economic Development Award from Mayor Dave Aker and Councillor Lucy Stoyles, and was approved to travel internationally on city business in a few weeks' time. Your top bureaucrat in the city is now no longer on the job. What's happening?
Yeah, Steve has taken a leave of absence, and really I can't comment any further about the details. But it's business as usual for the city of Mount Pearl.
Kent was also supposed to be at the airport with the mayor today, traveling to Boston. Aker providing very little detail. You're not confirming whether it was voluntary or mandated by council. Are you worried about the message that might send to your taxpayers, your citizens?
No, I'm not, because in matters like this, I can't comment any further.
But the mayor did express confidence in Kent.
Steve and the team have done a great job for the city of Mount Pearl. We're growing, we're doing novel things. We've done a fantastic job under Steve's leadership with our marketing and our development activities, our economic development activities, and yeah, it's onward and upward.
Kent is in his early 40s, spent half his years in public life, with a resume that includes health minister, deputy premier, and an unsuccessful attempt at PC party leader.
It's a really, really tough decision to walk away from public life.
Now, Kent is on paid leave, with no word on when he'll be back.
We have our directors, along with the mayor. We'll be sitting on an executive committee for the next little while. I don't know the amount of time.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, with Manitoba's minimum wage increase yesterday, this province now has the second lowest minimum wage in the country. The lowest amount people in Manitoba can now earn is $11.65 per hour. That's 25 cents more than here, where the rate is $11.40 per hour. To compare, Alberta has the country's highest minimum wage at $15 per hour, and the lowest is in Saskatchewan at $11.32 per hour. Foster parents across Newfoundland and Labrador are being celebrated. National Foster Families Month was declared this afternoon in St. John's, and in a province with roughly 1,000 children in care, more loving homes are needed to help look after them. Like one of the families at today's event, an adopted daughter who is also fostering children.
That it was all I ever knew. I mean, I look at, what my parents had done in, helping over 100 children. And I mean, it just inspired me to kind of pass on that legacy and do that same kind of good for other people who need it.
The company says it's cleaning up all the salmon from the cages, but if you look behind us, you're going to see a huge flow of emulsified salmon being tossed right back into the ocean. More exclusive coverage of the big salmon cleanup on the south coast coming up on Here and Now.
Welcome back, everyone. Time for a look at the weather, and you have a nice picture for us, a chilly picture for us.
It depends on if you're looking forward to ski season or not.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this first snow fell on the Long Range Mountains last night and earlier today. Yeah, Harrison Bragg.
And so it begins.
And so it begins. Yeah, Harrison Bragg sent us that photo. And actually, there were people talking about it on Twitter that the snow from last year hasn't really even melted. So there's
really?
Yeah, well, there's that. But it's certainly no surprise there because of the temperatures that we saw today. And overnight last night. Now, we did see those double-digit highs this afternoon, but still those cooler air and cooler temperatures up through Lab City, 3 degrees this afternoon, 8 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And as we speak, those temperatures are starting to drop. We're getting back into that northerly flow. Now, that low tracked and skirted just south of the island earlier today. But those temperatures sitting around 5 degrees for St. John's right now, 7 for Corner Brook. And if we take a look at the satellite radar, you can see that change as we start to see some of that cooler air move in. And that's going to continue as we head through the night tonight. There's that low I was talking about. That's moved off now. They're no longer under the influence of that. So as we head through the night tonight, those temperatures are really going to drop. And again, we're looking at that risk of some snow on the Long Range Mountains through central and really anywhere in the higher elevations. Likely after midnight, we'll start to see that change over to flurries altogether or just a wet snow for those higher elevations. And then some clearing will happen in behind that up through Labrador. You're going to stay generally unsettled though with those cooler temperatures. That means for central and western Lab, we're looking at that potential for some flurries, and then along the coast, it's more of either rain or snow with those temperatures hovering around the single digits. So another cool night again, northwesterlies. We did see those winds ease this afternoon. They're going to pick right back up tonight for the metro area. Northwesterlies 20 to 60 kilometers per hour tonight. 3 degrees for Corner Brook, winds out of the north-northwest 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. Going down to 1 degree for St. Anthony. You're looking at the chance of showers, then it should clear overnight tonight. The Straits and up along the coast, again, looking at either rain or flurries tonight. Happy Valley, Goose Bay should clear out 2 degrees, and then Lab City, the chance of flurries, and a cool night at -3. So here's a look at tomorrow. Not going to be cloudy all day, looking at some peaks of sun through the afternoon, but we are still looking at that chance of showers through the day, the risk of flurries again in the morning. The temperatures are eventually going to climb into the mid to high single digits tomorrow. And then essentially a carbon copy forecast for Labrador as to what you're going to see tonight. That's generally going to continue through the day tomorrow, and then eventually some clearing into the day on Friday. So that's certainly good news there. But we are going to hang on to these cooler temperatures again. So northwesterlies picking up a little bit more, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. But again, generally sitting between 7 and 9 degrees across the board. Grand Falls winds are 7. Again, along the coast, similar, with that chance of showers through the day. You can see that snow in the Long Range Mountains again, 7 degrees for St. Anthony, and then again that carbon copy forecast along the coast, and 1 degree for Lab City with that chance of flurries. And again, you're looking at those northwesterlies, pretty gusty, anywhere from 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. So we're looking at these cooler temperatures for the next couple of days, but we do have some warmer air in the future. I'll have all those details coming up.
Now back to our top story, the cleanup of a massive number of dead salmon on the southwest coast of the island. Joining me now is Jason Card, the spokesperson for Northern Harvest Sea Farm. So Mr. Card, we've been seeing some video of the cleanup today. Can you please explain some of what we're seeing? For example, one of the boats there is spewing this pink liquid back into the ocean. What is all that pink stuff?
Okay, so folks needn't be concerned about that being some manner of contaminant or some issue with spreading pollution or something to that effect. When a seiner takes mortalities out of a pen, it has to suck it up, and naturally it's going to take seawater with it. So as the tube takes the mortalities out of the pen, it sorts the mortalities into the hull of the ship, and then the water that carried those mortalities into the boat gets ejected over the side. That's simply salmon pigment. It dissolves. It's not an environmental risk. There's no concern there in terms of disease because this wasn't a disease event. It was temperature that killed the fish.
Okay, and we're also seeing, chunks of salmon fat and oil gathering along the shoreline, and we're being told that the smell there is horrendous. So just wondering, what are your company's plans, if any, to clean up the beaches?
Well, so we are actually cleaning the beaches as we proceed with the cleanup. So dealing with some of the fat on the water is something that we are focused on. Folks needn't be worried about the fat as well, because the fat is a natural part of the decomposition of fish when they die in the ocean, and it dissolves. So it's not a concern. It doesn't carry any environmental risk, no risk to humans.
So do you have any idea how other fisheries in the area could possibly be affected by this?
Some idea. This was raised actually earlier today by the president of the FFAW, and I do want to reassure him and the harvesters, who we are staying in regular contact with, that there was a similar event experienced. It wasn't heat; it was super chill in 2014. This is prior to our operations in Newfoundland and Labrador, but there was a mass mortality then that did spread some fat along the south coast. It was actually broader in terms of the geographic area that was affected. And that had no impact negatively on the lobster fishery. In fact, the lobster catches are recorded by DFO and published online, and it shows in the years since 2014 they've had their best harvests in years. So if you take that as evidence, then there is no cause for concern there in terms of how wild fisheries may be affected. And we do feel for how the wild fishery has been affected. We're all in this together. We're all dealing with climate change together. And I'm glad to be able to share information with them on that. You can speak to regulatory authorities. They would confirm what we're saying, that this is not going to be an environmental impact. We never lost containment at any point in time. The mortalities remained in the cages. We are cleaning up the cages as fast as we can. In terms of this happening, it is our intent to never let this happen again. What you need to know is Northern Harvest Sea Farms is an acquired company. This is the first year that we had acquired the company and we're operating with its gear, so it's our first go with the infrastructure. Unfortunately, in that first year, we had this extraordinary weather event. We've never seen temperatures like this for as long as we've seen them. We are going to behave as though this is a new normal, and that means a complete overhaul of the gear and a complete overhaul of what our mass mortality response plan looks like. So we are making those adaptations now. We're going to implement deeper cages to protect the fish, aeration systems to make sure that we don't have temperature events and oxygenation problems in the future. And in terms of how we do our responses, we're going to be looking at improving that as well. We will do better for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, for our workers who are proud to work for us, and for the industry.
Some people might look at this and say, it's been a month. Surely you know how many salmon were in each of the pens affected. Can you at least say if it's been, like thousands of pounds, hundreds of thousands of pounds, or millions of pounds?
We will disclose exact information in due course. I don't want to engage in estimates because that causes trouble for everybody. I want to be correct, and we will convey correct information. Good weather prevailing and everything going as planned without any unanticipated issues. We anticipate maximally this would take 2 more weeks. We're working to make it faster than that.
Okay. Well, Jason Carr, thank you so much for giving us this update. I'm sure we'll be speaking with you again soon.
Thank you for the opportunity, Carolyn.
Thank you.
And you just get that call that changes your life forever. And I remember realizing it was over. The life that we knew was over.
April McCarthy shares her incredible journey in dealing with her husband's tragic death. The return of our Here and Now special series, This Is My Story, after the break. Well, tonight we mark the return of our special Here and Now series, This Is My Story, where we check back in with people who have overcome some major life challenges. In this first segment, we revisit a tragic incident, the sinking of the fishing vessel Sea Gypsy Enterprises. On September 12th, 2009, the boat was heading back to shore with a full load of shrimp when it started taking on water. Here's one of the surviving crew members recounting what happened.
The water was up to be past my knees, nearly up to my waist. It was just like suicide going down and trying to get off the boat. But I threw myself in the water. I didn't know who was behind. And I got sucked under the boat. I don't know how it came up. Like, we did everything, but we just couldn't find them. Just couldn't find them.
Now, Jimmy Kavanagh was one of 3 fishermen who were rescued that day. The body of a 4th man was recovered from the scene, and the 5th crew member, Chris McCarthy of Torres Cove, was lost at sea. Now, at the time, we didn't hear from McCarthy's family, but now, to mark the 10th anniversary of his passing, his wife, April McCarthy, is speaking about her journey from grief to gratitude. Here's April's segment of This Is My Story.
It was a Saturday morning. The Sea Gypsy was coming in with a full load. There was no alarm in the area that took on water.
The Sea Gypsy was about 130 kilometers east of St. John's when it started taking on water.
It's something you always hear about, not something that you think is going to happen.
I'm April, and in 2009, my husband Chris was lost at sea in the sinking of the Sea Gypsy. And this is my story.
A Newfoundland fisherman's been missing at sea for more than 36 hours. He was part of a crew that abandoned ship yesterday morning. A fellow crew member is dead, plucked from the sea yesterday, along with 3 survivors in lifeboats.
When the news came and he wasn't the first person off the boat, I knew he wasn't coming home. It was a beautiful sunny day. Like, you can't imagine something bad happening on a day like that, and you just get that call that changes your life forever. And I remember realizing it was over. The life that we knew was over, and I was on my knees on the floor, and my son Ben was putting his arms around my neck, and he was crying, and we were just holding each other, and that's what we were saying, it was over. My daughter knew, even though she was 6 at the time. I said, you know, honey, I said, your daddy is not coming home. And she said, I know, Mom. She said, he wasn't a survivor. And I looked at her, and she was playing with her Barbies, kneeling on the edge of the bed, and I was like, what does that mean? And she said, it means that he didn't make it, he's gone to heaven. That was the hard part, was telling the children. Chris was my best friend. When we met, he was kind of shy, so he was like the yin to my yang, because I'm really outgoing, and he liked to joke around. He had this sly little grin, and he absolutely loved hunting. But Chris was the type, like, if there's something was wrong and he could help, he'd be there. And that was a big part of his life. He was taking care of his family. He was always such a hard worker on the boat. He was a great person. He was a great man. Were we upset and hurt about it, that Chris died? Yes. What happened, happened. And if you live with regret and bitterness and anger about it, then there's going to be no room for all the other things that I wanted in my life. Happiness and joy and pleasure and love. I completely focused on the children, making sure they were okay. They had a traumatic loss to their innocence at such an early age, and I had to be there for them because I needed them to know that the world wasn't a scary place and they were going to be fine in it. We moved here 10 years ago from Trepassey. I didn't know anybody here at the time. My kids had a new house, they were going to a new school, and then they lost their dad. On the night that accident happened, my now very good friend, and I always say adopted grandmother. Zita Dunphy came and sat with my mom that night, and she's been a part of our family ever since. And times when I was having a hard time, I don't know how she knew, but she'd come up and she said, I was thinking about you today. And just her being there at times, just sitting with my kids so I could wash the dishes or put an extra load of laundry while she played cards with them, it made such a difference. She's an angel. We have on Chris's gravestone, your love will always be our guide. And it has been my guide throughout this. I learned early on that grief is a very lonely place. And I knew that other people felt that too, and I didn't want people to feel alone. So I started out just small things at first. I was doing fitness classes and stuff, and people would come and confide to me, and it just kind of grew from there. Threads of Life is a wonderful organization that helps connect people who are going through the same experiences. They do an Atlantic Family Forum for the one that I just attended in May. There was 100 of us there, and each person's life had been touched in some way by a workplace tragedy, a workplace fatality, an illness. Those people know where you're coming from. They know what you've been through. Threads of Life trained me in Toronto this past January to be a volunteer family guide. You're matched up with a family who has been through exactly similar situation, you know, lost their spouse. You're not there to be their counselor, you're not a psychiatrist, you're not there to fix their problems. You're there to listen and to offer support and say, you know what, it'll get better. I do a lot of hiking on the East Coast Trail. I love to be in nature. It centers you, it calms you. And when I'm by the water, I also feel so connected to Chris. I know that's for his too. It's very healing. Our life without him hasn't been the same. It's always in the back of our mind. Me and my kids talk about him all the time. What would your dad say about this? What would your dad think? Like, you know, oh, you know, Dad would love this. And I know that he sees us and he's so happy and he's so proud. Looking back at how far we've come and how much we've done, me and the kids, I was very proud. We're at this other stage now where my children and me, we're all individual people and we have lives and dreams and goals, and they're moving towards their lives. And I have to branch out further and continue my growth and move towards a new life for myself too. Now I want to finish my book I'm writing about what happened to us, not concentrating on the accident, but concentrating on our journey, where we got to a place from grief to gratitude. And I can honestly say I'm in that place. Yes, it was incredibly difficult. There were times where I was like, how am I going to do it without you, Chris? But now I realize that he was there beside us all the time. His love and courage that I knew he had at those last moments, and how he must have felt leaving us, just propelled us to keep going and propelled me to keep being strong.
Well, that piece was filmed this past summer, and today we have an update for you. April McCarthy has gone back to school, so we're wishing her the best of luck with her studies. Our production team of Paula Gale, Jen White, Sherry Vivian, Gary Quigley, and Carolyn Atkinson worked on that piece. And stay tuned, because more segments of This Is My Story are on the way, airing every 2 weeks on Here and Now.
We're live in Harbour Breton. Here and Now special coverage of the big salmon cleanup in Fortune Bay. Aquaculture has done a lot of good things here in Harbour Breton. Coming up, we'll talk to the mayor about that right after the break. Welcome back to Here and Now. We're here in Harbour Breton, as you have noticed tonight, and I'm joined now by the mayor of this fine municipality, Georgina Ollerhead. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I wonder what your thoughts are, given the fact that here we are, you know why we're here, major salmon kill, a lot of dead fish. What are your thoughts about what's happened?
Well, of course, I mean, it is devastating, of course. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, when you hear news like that, you're always concerned with regards to, you know, your fish plant and your workers. And, of course, we're concerned. But yet, we have to be optimistic. We need aquaculture in Harbour Breton, not only here in the Coastal Bays. Very, very vital to our industry.
Because, you know, when we were out there actually taking a look at the cleanup, because a lot of people don't get to go out beyond some of the communities like Harbour Breton, but we're out in the water and you see, you know, the seiners pumping out these pens with this, you know, this horrible pink fluid that's flying everywhere, and there's fat on the water, and traditional fisher people saying, you know, we're kind of worried about this. How do you convince people that in the middle of a big cleanup like this, that okay, things are going to somehow get normal again?
Well, of course, you know, being the mayor of Harbour Breton, like aquaculture and your inshore fishermen go hand in hand. You know, we need it all to make our community, you know, thrive. But I have all the confidence with the, you know, open communication with the company, and they're telling us they're using every resource to clean up the issue. And you know, I have confidence in them. There a couple years ago, they took us out to BC and showed how they operate. Unfortunately, with the exceptional summer we had, this happened. Yeah. You know, so I trust that, you know, that they will do what's needed, and I'm sure the provincial government will step in and make sure that, you know, it's done properly. And we're assured by them that, you know, they're going to do a proper cleanup and they're going to rebuild, which is absolutely wonderful to hear, because they're committed to us.
All right. Now, in a small town like this in Newfoundland, the mayor, not just the mayor, but everybody knows everybody in a place like Harbour Breton. When you're talking to people, are people nervous? Is there anxiety, or what's your sense of how people in Harbour Breton feel?
Well, of course. I mean, people are concerned, and being in a position that I'm in, like I have to tell them, I have to keep the dialogue open, saying that we're talking to the industry, and they're saying that they're going to rebuild, and they're using modern technology with the other sites that they're putting in, and we're confident that it's going to come back. And that's what we need to hear.
Yeah. Now, one of the criticisms of the company is that it hasn't been completely forthright and open with information. They've been doing this for 3 weeks now, which gives you an indication as to how serious this is. Have they been better communicating with you and the municipalities than perhaps the media or the provincial government?
I'm going to say that that the lines of communication has been absolutely wonderful. Like they're always on the phone with us. They're sending out emails and talking to the other mayors in the area, some of the harvesters. Yes, I'm going to say that yes, they've had open communication and been upfront with the issue.
And one final question. There's a big truck going by there. The people who work in the plant, obviously, this is a person in aquaculture who I know tells me that you got to think of these fish, Anthony, they're like 9 to 10 pound fish. Each one of those is a $50 bill for the company. There's a fish plant not too far from us, right? What about those plant workers? Not so much for now, but for next year.
Well, we're hoping, that they've got enough unemployment, to chop them up for a year, and fingers crossed that that everyone's going to get back to work, and that's what we've got to put our trust in. And to be concerned, yes, I mean we're concerned. I mean, as a town, what happens if not all these people get back to work? I mean, in order to run a town, you've got to collect taxes from everyone, right? But let's hope that everything will work out for the best.
Okay, Mayor Ollerhead, thank you very much for your time, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. That's Georgina Ollerhead, Mayor here in Harbour Breton. And I should point out, Carolyn, we're not vanishing from this region here and now. We're going to be here again tomorrow night. There are many more follows. We'll talk, we hope, to some of those plant workers to get their thoughts, as well as perhaps one of Mayor Ollerhead's colleagues from another community in this region, because it doesn't just affect Harbour Breton, it affects a lot of people throughout this area in Fortune Bay.
Great, thanks. Still lots more to talk about. Thanks, Anthony. Welcome back, everyone. So Anthony is on the South Coast. He says he's going to be sticking around there tomorrow to have more coverage of the salmon die-off that happened down there. How's the weather looking for him down there tomorrow?
Not too bad, actually. Yeah, tomorrow is going to stay cool, though, across the board. We do have temperatures anywhere from 7 to 9 degrees. We'll take a look at that forecast one more time. Best chance of seeing the sunshine will actually be on the south coast. Otherwise, we're looking at periods of sun and cloud through the day with that chance of showers across the board. And again, those cooler temperatures sticking around. Quite gusty as well, anywhere from 40 to 60 or 40 to 50 kilometer per hour winds rather. Up through Labrador, cool again for Lab West. Lab City sitting around 1 degree tomorrow with that chance of flurries right through Central as well. As those temperatures start to come up, we will see that change over to the chance of showers. 6 degrees for Nain, 3 for Makovic. And again, looking at either flurries or showers through the day for you. Now, over the next couple of days, certainly into Friday, we're going to start to get a little bit more settled as far as that weather goes. So a little bit more in the way of sun and cloud. We should get rid of the chance of showers. Mainly, if we do see that change of showers, will be down through the south coast and then potentially just scattered through Central. Otherwise, again, just cloudy periods through the day. And again, up through Labrador staying pretty nice as well. Lab West might see the chance of a few flurries. And then by the time we get to Saturday, that's when we'll look at that chance of showers again across the province. So here's a look at your temperatures. Again, hanging on to these cooler temperatures into Friday, about 6 to 7 degrees, 9 through Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Again, that chance of flurries for Lab City, and you're going to hang on to those cooler temperatures. But there is a warm up on the way. So we take a look in the upper atmosphere again where that jet stream is. There's that cold pool of air that we will see or have been seeing over the past couple of days. This takes us through to Saturday morning, and then we start to see a ridge in that jet stream, and that means the warmer air is moving in. It's not going to last too long, but it'll certainly be welcome over the next couple of days as we've been hanging on to these below seasonal temperatures. So here's a look at the next 5 days for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland. Again, 7 degrees, dipping to about 5 by Saturday before we start to get that warmer air in. But by Sunday and Monday, it does look like a return of that sunshine with temperatures around 10 and 14 degrees. Now that is around seasonal for this time of year. And then overnight low on Monday, nice again into the double digits, should sit around 11 degrees. For central Newfoundland, essentially, we're looking at the chance of showers into Saturday, Sunday clearing, but by Monday, we'll start to see that chance of showers move back in. 14 degrees should be the afternoon high. For western Newfoundland, between 6 and 7 degrees into Saturday with showers. Again, we could see a few flurries as those temperatures dip overnight. 10 degrees by Sunday, and then another day in the teens for you on Monday. Now, after we get the chance of showers and flurries out of the way for eastern Labrador on Thursday, the rest of the week heading into the weekend actually looks, or rather next week looks quite nice, anywhere from 12 to 16 degrees by the time Monday rolls around. And unfortunately, Lab West, you're going to stay out of that cooler or that warmer air, rather. You're going to stay in those cool temperatures with that chance of showers into Monday. Now we want to know where you're to. If you were up early this morning, you certainly saw this sunrise, got a number of pictures. I'll tell you where this was taken after the break.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, since taking part in the massive climate march in Montreal last Friday, activist Greta Thunberg has been exploring other parts of Quebec. The Swedish teenager posted this image on Twitter yesterday from Tadoussac, a village located at the junction of the St. Lawrence River and the Saguenay. She visited the Marine Mammal Interpretation Center and said she enjoyed watching the whales, especially the belugas. Nice, so she's getting a bit of the Canadian flavor in Quebec.
That's right.
Yeah. So you have a gorgeous photo for us, and it was taken this morning.
This morning, yeah, a number of people pointing out how beautiful the start of the day was, the gorgeous sunrise. This photo was taken on the Avalon in Torbay.
Oh, very close.
Very close.
Beautiful colors.
I know. There's something about a beautiful sunrise that just gets your day, you know, started perfectly.
Yeah, it makes me wish I had just gotten up a little bit earlier this morning.
Well, those sunrises are getting later and later, so
yeah,
you didn't have to get up that early. Brianna Loader took this photo. Thank you so much for sending that in. And if you have any weather photos that you'd like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca and we will get them on the show.
Great. Thank you very much, Brianna. And as Anthony mentioned earlier in the show, he's going to stick around the southwest coast tomorrow. So we are going to be hearing more about the cleanup of all of that salmon on the south coast from the Aquaculture organization down there. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds over the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Have a great night, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
Good night.